Our speaker today is Adam Loomberg. He is the president and CEO of Postal Advocate, the only mail audit and recovery firm in the US and Canada. We manage a portfolio of 182,000 pieces of mailing equipment and over 101,000 online postage users for the largest US companies. We speak and teach nationally on mail savings and industry trends. He is a former industry co-chair of the Boston Postal Customer Council and Mail Systems Management Association. He is CMDSS and MDC certified. Adam is a featured writer for Mailing Systems Technology magazine, and he worked for one of the largest mailing vendors for over 17 years as the director of national sales for Presort, tabletop inserters addressing hardware, software, and green offerings. And he was one of the top 5 account managers nationally, working with some of the nation's largest accounts. Over to you, Adam.
Kayla, let's talk about everybody's favorite topic today, rate changes. We've been seeing a lot of them over the last few years, which we're going to talk about. But what we're going to cover today is what rates are changing, how this is going to impact you. What do you need to know about this? What are savings tips? Throughout this entire thing, we're going to go over tips of things that you can do to try to reduce costs and thoughts on the USPS. This new rate increase is going into effect on July 13th, 2025. So it usually goes into effect on a Sunday because they want to make sure that everybody's downloaded the rates and that everyone's compliant for when they start work on Monday. So it's impossible to do one of these sessions and to cover every single rate that's changing. So what we're going to cover is the most common rates used by businesses. And we're covering most of the rates, but there's always segments, especially in international and periodicals and things, that we're not going to be covering. If you want to find out those rates, you can go to the Postal Explorer website and you can get the details there for any classes that we're not covering. So let's talk about the USPS for a sec, because there are a few misconceptions about what's actually been happening. But I want to give you a bigger picture. We've been tracking mail volumes over the last 15 years. And this is research that we've done to compile this information. So if you look at some of the main mail classes, first class, marketing, shipping, and periodicals, the mail volumes have changed dramatically over the last 15 years. And so we're going to look at it from a perspective of the last 15 years and the last 5. And then I'm going to give you a deeper dive, especially on the first class mail segment and the shipping, so you can sort of see what's happening. So first class mail volumes over the last 15 years have gone down 43%. For the last 5 years, they've gone down 16%. Marketing mail, 30% and 10%. Shipping services have gone up by 127%, but have gone down slightly over the last 5 years at 2.6%. Periodicals have taken probably the largest beating in the segment as we're all reading our communications on iPads, phones, and on our computers. And that's gone down 62% in the last 15 years and 31% in the last 5. So you could see the totals. On an average, mail volume, especially when you look at it on a per piece perspective, have gone down 35% and 13%. Now, when we read the news, we hear about, mail volumes are declining at rapid rates. We hear about the demise of the Postal Service. But let me show you what's really happening in a deeper dive. The main thing that people focus on when they talk about declines in the Postal Service is first class mail. We are not sending from our offices and from our homes as many communications back and forth to people as we used to. We're not sending as many bills, checks. We're not sending as many miscellaneous communications. We're emailing, PDFing. We're doing different things that get us away from it. So in those smaller batch jobs, that what we call the single piece items, which is here, letters, cards, and flats, we're seeing huge increases. 62 to 78% increases in those single piece items in the last 3 years. In the last 5 years, it's gone down anywhere between 27 and 33%, as you can see. But when you look at the numbers, and this is where it's a little bit misleading, the majority of first class mail isn't done in our offices. It's done in either like large production centers. It's for statement processing, invoices, large scale check print runs. It's large batch communications that are done by either using a pre-sort service, meaning you're a high enough mail volume user, have someone pick up your mail and run it through a pre-sort service. People are consolidating their mail volumes into hub locations and getting it sent out in smarter ways, or they're outsourcing it to third parties who can get this pre-sort category. And the significance of that is over the last 15 years, those volumes have only gone down 29%. Over the last 5 years, 9.6%. So we're only seeing in the large production segment about a 2% decline, versus in the regular segment, we're seeing in the single piece segment, we're seeing 8, 9, 10% declines. But if you look at the volumes, there's still 33 billion pieces of that mail that's only going down at 2% compared to basically the 10 million pieces and the other 10 billion pieces in the other segments. So everyone talks about like e-adoption and mails going away. It's not, because the biggest production segment clients are not proving that they can divert a lot of that volume to electronic at any sort of fast cadence. At 2% a year, that's the only thing that we're seeing. When you look at the package segment, when you're looking at the package segment, we're seeing priority mail volumes have gone down, 10% in the last 15 years, 45% in the last 5 years. So it looks like priority mail volume is dying. We had an amazing decrease last year from over a billion pieces to 700 million pieces. That volume didn't go away. The post office didn't stop getting it. They created a new service called Ground Advantage that is basically a consistent 2 to 5 day ground service throughout the country. And it stole a good chunk of the volume from priority mail because people realized it was more cost effective. And that 34% decline went to the 28% increase in Ground Advantage. So my point is, when you dive into the numbers, it's sort of a different situation than what you might be reading in the media. But mail volumes are not going away at any time soon, unless there's significant regulation that allows people to automatically like eliminate people from like not have to opt out from their mail services, and if people had if the businesses had the control to be able to automatically opt people out without their approvals, mail volumes would be in big trouble. But minus that, we're going to see a very slow decline in this production mail spend that's going to maintain the Postal Service at some level. But we're still going to see large increases in postage. The only way the post office is going to be able to adapt to this is to keep increasing rates, and they're doing it at higher and higher levels. Over the last 4 years, we've had 7 different rate increases in the letter and flat segment. And those increases have been 35 to 74%. Like, if you stop and think about that, it's incredible. It's incredible because if you looked at the 20 years before this, so the combined 20 years of rate changes would be about half of the rate increases we've seen in the last 4. We have never seen these types of rate increases. And, I'd like to say it's the post office's fault, but it's not. Our mail habits are declining. Like, we are not mailing as many things. The post office has to adapt to, fewer items per drop off. They have more locations they have to drop off mail. So there's less profitability every time they drop off mail because they have fewer pieces. And at the same time, we've had some major corrections with things like COVID. We had a recession in 2008. There were different instances, and when that happens, a lot of mail goes out of the system, and then that usually doesn't come back. Once there's a big correction, those volumes create the new norm. So we're dealing with the post office trying to stay solvent, and their main tool in which to do that is to increase rates. So what we're going to see in this rate increase, and we'll talk more about the details of it, is we're dealing with 7 to 14 to 13% increases overall on your main mail classes, and we'll go into the details of how this impacts you. So let's go through the first class. First class, single piece mail. Letters are going up 6.8%. 1 ounce flats are going from $1.50 to $1.63, a 9% increase. Excuse me, postcards are having the largest increase at almost 9%, but the additional ounce rate, so if something's 2 ounces or 3 ounces, that additional ounce rate is staying the same. So as items get heavier, you could see these increased percentages going down, and that's because there's no increase in that additional ounce rate. Most of the people on this call aren't using a single piece mail for their letters. They're using a class called metered letters. And metered letters are anyone who uses either a postage meter or an online postage tool to print their postage, and they get a reduced rate of 4 cents per piece. The rate for a single piece letter is going from 69 cents to 74 cents, a 5-cent increase, 7.2%. And as items get heavier, obviously the percentage increase goes down. So I just want to point out, if you are using single piece rates for letters and you're not running it through a meter or an online postage tool, you should think about having a meter, because based on your mail volumes, the savings can be considerable at about 5%. First class mail commercial. anyone who's like, probably a lot of the people that are on this call are using either a pre-sort service to pick up their mail every day and they're qualifying for commercial rates, or you're sending it, you either have automation software in your office that allows you to comply for these and you're bringing it to a specific window with the Postal Service to get these discounts, or most likely you're outsourcing your mail to a third party and they're taking care of these commercial requirements for you. So the rates on the commercial mail are increasing by 8 to 9%. On the letter side, 8 to 9%. On the flats, you can see up to 11% increases, and in postcards, about an average of up to 10.3%. So what's interesting about this is that usually you see the biggest increases on items that are being sorted to the lowest level. If anyone's not comfortable with what these sort levels mean, I'm going to give you a really simple way to think about it. I always use the same exact example because if you're older like me, you know that there was the only zip code in the country everybody knows is 90210, which is in Beverly Hills. It was a show. So the way to think about automation sorts is if you have 150 pieces going to a 5-digit zip code, a specific 5-digit zip code like 90210, you qualify for the 5-digit rate. If you have 150 pieces that go to an automated area distribution center, which is a scheme of 3 digits, the first 3 digits of the zip code, like 902, 906, 910, post office has specific schemes that qualify for a specific AADC rate. The rate's 593, and then every other piece in your automation mailing gets the 62.2 cent rate. That's the way automation works. So usually you get the highest increases on items that have lower sort levels. On this one, we're getting the biggest increases on items with the highest sort levels, and that's sort of unique. There are additional increases in discounts that you can apply for. So seamless acceptance, savings increases from 0.01 to 0.02, 100% increase. If you're submitting full service IMB mailings, the savings increases from 0.003 to 0.05, 67% increases. And there's a new discount if you have enough mail volume that you can get pallet levels to a specific sectional center facility. And there are about 200 sectional center facilities throughout the country. You can save 0.004 for letters, 0.02 for postcards, and 0.01 for flats. So this is a new discount. We've never seen this type of discount for the SCF pallet discount in the first class segment. We've had it in marketing mail, but never in first class. So it's an additional way to save money. So what are your options to save money in first class? These are the main ones. I've laid it out in a chart so you can think about your mail to see what you qualify for. So first off, we talked about meters. If you're doing things at single piece, try to get it through a postage meter or online postage, you save 4 cents a piece. You go from 78 cents to 74 cents. If you're running over 500 pieces per day, or have one-time mailings of over 1,000 pieces, form a relationship with a local pre-sort service. They can pick up your mail. They can qualify those mailings at a discount. So instead of 74 cents, now it goes down to 68 cents. That's sort of a typical pre-sort rate. Automate your mailings either in-house or through third parties, like use print and mail service providers, mail houses, some people call them. They have dramatic savings. You can get the full discounts on your mailings based on how many pieces you have, of 59.3 to 68.6. Flats and postcards can have the same automation rates. So if you're doing flats, you can get things down to lower rates. And then consider moving generic content to first class or marketing mail. So if from first class to marketing mail. So if, let's say, you're sending out an announcement or an invitation or something where basically everybody's getting the same item. There's nothing considered personalized in correspondence. That's the term the post office uses in the pieces that makes you have to send it first class. Marketing mail, if you're outsourcing it or you have the software yourself, can get you significantly lower rates. That piece goes, instead of 74 cents, goes all the way down to 37.2. And if you happen to be a nonprofit and you're submitting marketing mail, that rate goes all the way down to 17.8 cents. So it's remarkable. Based on the level of sortation, you can go from 78 cents to 18 cents based on the type of organization that you have. Convert flats to letters. This is one of the biggest opportunities to save money. If we were to go back, I'm just going to skip back for a minute to the rate increases. When you look at first class flats, they've gone up 58%. When you look at automation flats, they've gone up 74%. The highest rate increases that we've seen have been on flats. Post office is making a clear message that they're going to keep raising these rates, and it's impacting the pricing. We find that a lot of organizations aren't looking at their flats in any sort of like specific way to figure out if they're saving strategies. The number one saving strategy with flats is to see, can I fold those flats into a 6 by 9.5 envelope, which means taking something that's going into a 9 by 12 or a 10 by 13 inch flat envelope like you see here, and then folding the documents in half so they can get into a 6 by 9.5 envelope. Depending on that, if you have an inserter in your office or if you use an outsourced provider, different machines can get different quantities, but you should be looking for items that can get 15 sheets, 15 or 16 sheets. That's sort of the maximum that people are really able to get, unless you have special configurations and envelopes through your outsourcer. But up to 15 sheets goes into a 6 by 9.5 envelope. So let's think about the math for a second. So let's say you're doing 8 pages and they're going into a flat because you've always done it that way. It's $2.17 to send that flat. If you just fold it in half and put it into a 6 by 9.5 envelope, it goes down to $1.01 because the envelope is lighter, the letter rate versus a flat rate. If you use a pre-sort service, the pre-sort services or automation mailings go up to 3.5 ounces at the 1 ounce rate. So you don't pay for the second ounce or the third ounce. And then the rate would be 68.6. And if you automate it yourself, 59.3 to 68.6. My point is, by paying attention to your flats, you can save 53 to 73%. But it takes understanding what the contents are and how you can do it. So the other ideas on flats is consider paper reduction strategies. Are you duplexing? Can we use smaller fonts to have fewer pages? Instead of printing terms and conditions, can we link to web pages that have that content versus printing the extra pages to get our page counts down? It's very important, and the savings can be very significant. Marketing mail. So we're getting a 7.8%, 7 to 8% increase for letters, as you can see. Nonprofit are faring a little bit better. They're getting, up to a 4.8% increase, but through some of their sort levels, it's only about 2 or 3%. For flats, lightweight flats are increasing 12 to 14%. And this is my point. The post office is making clear messages. We're going to increase the pricing of flats at higher rates. Whatever you can convert to the letter class is going to save you more and more money. Nonprofits getting those same types of increases, 11.5 to 14.5. Post office doesn't care if you're a nonprofit in the flats. They realize that they're underwater on that class of mail, and they want to increase prices so they can remain, cover their costs. There was a change in flats. So when flats are over 4 ounces, it's not based on just the weight. It's based on a 2-tier system where there's a per piece rate and a per pound rate. And it's you add the per piece and the per pound rate together, and that is your final piece cost. So the per piece costs have gone up an incredible 32 to 55%, but the per pound rates went down 34%. So that's difficult for anyone to figure out. So I have a chart here that you can look at, whether it's first class, marketing mail, commercial flats, or nonprofit. Based on your sort levels, anything 1 to 4 ounces, you're dealing with 12 to 14% increase. 4 to 7 ounces, 1 to 9% increases. And anything 8 ounces or over, you're actually getting decreases because the pound rate went down by so much. And you could have anywhere from 0 to 19% savings on heavier weight flats. So marketing mail, these are saving strategies you can think about in marketing mail. So the biggest savings that you can do in marketing mail is something called entry discounts. Can you physically truck your mail closer to a sectional center facility or to a postal facility that supports where your mail is going for its final delivery? And if you can do that, the post office gives you discounts. So there are 2 types of discounts: DNDC, Destination Network Distribution Center, and DSCF, Destination Sectional Center Facility. The DNDC discount has been eliminated, which is a big deal for a lot of mailers who were depositing mail, who were getting mail submitted to those DNDC places. It was a 2.7% savings, and it has been completely taken out. 100% declines in those rates. For letters, there was a 51, if you're getting things to the sectional center facility, the savings went from 3.5 cents to 1.7 cents, a 51% decline. For flats, less than 4 ounces, 58.2% decline. And for flats over 4 ounces, a 35% decline. Huge declines in the entry-level discounts. It's still one of the best ways to save money, even at 1.7 or 3.8. cents or 31.2, it's still the best way to save money. But the post office is saying, if you want those discounts, you're going to have to get it to one of the sectional center facilities. And there's still a savings, but it's not as great. But there are some additional savings options. You can save additional savings options. You can subtract a half a cent for full service intelligent mail, 0.002 for seamless acceptance, and 0.003 for the sectional center facility pallet discount. So if you have full pallets going to a sectional center facility, you're saving 0.003 cents, just like we saw in first class mail. So the same saving strategies work for flats work for marketing mail that work for first class. If you can fold flats and or design your pieces to qualify within the letter size segment, the rates are lower. Letter rates are 17.3 to 40.2 cents for up to 3.5 ounces. Flats for up to 4 ounces are 45.1 to $1.04. So you can see that if you can convert any of your pieces or redesign things, the pricing can be much lower. And the letters are also getting lower rate increases, which will be a better long-term impact. The competitive segment. The competitive segment is typically parcels. And parcels are Priority Mail, Ground Advantage, Priority Mail Express. Those are some of the main three classes. There are some others, but those are the main three. So we normally only see rate increases on those classes in the January rate increase, because every year UPS and FedEx increase their rates in January, and the post office increases rates sort of at similar timeframes. But in this time, we're seeing some decent rate increases after we got a rate increase in January, and we're seeing it again now. And then there probably will be a rate increase not a rate increase, but a holiday surge pricing that we'll have to deal with as well. But priority mail rates for the retail and commercial are all going up. Priority mail retail rates are going up, 10% for the flat rate envelopes, and flat rate envelopes and boxes are the items that the post office provides the packaging. You're getting a 10% increase. On retail, commercial is 12%. So let's just talk real quick, if you're not comfortable, retail and commercial. Retail is, I bring it up to the retail counter of the post office and I have them generate me a slip, or I run it through my postage meter. Postage meters, inside your postage meter has a retail rate. You just kick a meter tape on a piece, that's a retail rate. A commercial rate is generating a 4x6 shipping label. So someone's typed in the address and generated a 4x6 shipping label, typically through a third-party software platform. Like any of your mailing vendors are going to have these, Quadient, Pitney Bowes, Stamps.com, Indicia. There are some others that can generate commercial rates that save you money, but you have to basically generate a 4x6 shipping label similar to what you would have with UPS or FedEx. So the flat rates are going up 10 to 12%, depending on if it's retail or commercial. 1 to 5 pounds, 6 to 8%. You could see 6 to 10 pounds. As items get heavier on the retail side, they stop their rate increases at 11 pounds. But on the commercial base, on the commercial side, they still have increases of 9 to 14%. What I want to point out is if you go across the column and you look at the savings on the actual rate of the retail versus the commercial, on flat rate items, the average is an 11% savings. 1 to 5 pounds is 17%, 6 to 10, 17%. So you can see there's significant savings moving over to the commercial segment, even with these increases. This is the savings of the commercial over the retail. Priority Mail Express, no rate increases on this time, and you can see basically 12 to 14% savings having commercial over retail. And Ground Advantage, really large increases on the retail side for items under a pound. The reason that's significant is the number one place people had used Ground Advantage, which used to be called first class parcel, is that post office has less than 1 pound rates. There's a 4 ounce, an 8 ounce, a 12 ounce rate, where if you compare that to Priority Mail and UPS and FedEx, those rates are geared at the single pound rate. So on the retail side, 26% increase, on the commercial, 5%. And if you look up the rates as they go down, 3, 2, and then 6%, increases on the commercial side. If you look at the savings over retail over commercial in the Ground Advantage, the savings are much more significant. Less than a pound is 37% less to have a commercial rate by generating that label than just running it through your meter. 26% the 1 to 5 pound, 27, 30, 14. So big savings in ground advantage. So I want you to think about a lot of organizations ship everything through one of their prime carriers, and their prime carriers are going to be UPS or FedEx. Every organization that you really deal with is going to have some form of relationship with one of those two carriers. Some people use both. And we work with a lot of clients where we talk about, like, why do you need to care about just sending everything through the UPS or everything through FedEx, usually on their free tools that they provide, like Campus Ship, UPS.com, FedEx.com, FedEx Ship Manager. The reason that you want to be able to rate shop your shipments against not only against your own carrier, but also to include the post office is the following. The free systems default to higher priced air services when ground services for local zones might have the same or faster delivery. So case in point, you're shipping something from within 150 miles because you have a lot of offices. Ground service is guaranteed next day in those areas, but the free systems from the carriers don't disclose that. Okay, on the postal side, USPS has a priority mail service that's a 1 to 3 day service and a ground advantage service that's 2 to 5 day service. All of these can be compared. I don't recommend comparing post office priority mail to your next day air services, but I do recommend not comparing them to your 2 day, your 3 day, and your ground services because they can have lower rates. And I'll explain that in a second. USPS has ounce-based rates for its ground service, where UPS and FedEx started a pound. So if your things are light, like we find a lot of hospitals sending, prescriptions, people are sending samples or sending, paper documents that are in lightweight, envelope packs. Well, the Postal Service has 4-ounce or 12-ounce rates that can basically give you full tracking, just like the Postal Service. I mean, just like UPS or FedEx, but they at a significantly lower rate. There are discounted services that you can get, negotiated service agreements that you can get access to through third-party software providers that can give you discounts on the postal services that average about 25%, better rates than the commercial rates I just showed you, and the discounts can be as high as 89%. And then the other piece is Postal Service doesn't charge for things that UPS and FedEx do. And so examples are Postal Service doesn't charge fuel surcharges. Those are 17 to 19%. If you're sending things to residents, no matter how good your discount is, if you're getting residential fees because you're sending things to a resident that's $6 to $7, it wipes away any savings from your contract. 61% of all zip codes in the United States get a delivery area surcharge. That means your zip code of where you're shipping that item to is less dense. 61% of all zip codes in the country, and you get charged anywhere between $4.20 to $8.30. And the other piece is UPS and FedEx dimensionalize every package, where the post office only dimensionalizes things over a foot, over a cubic foot. So anything under 12 by 12 by 12, the post office doesn't dimensionalize. So think about this. You're sending lightweight items and you're putting it in a box. Let's say you're sending a 2-pound item in a big box because it's a lightweight piece and it's in 10 by 10 by 10 box. UPS and FedEx are going to rate that piece as 8 pounds, regardless of the weight of the item based on the dimensions. Postal Service will rate it as a 2-pound item, and that helps the Postal Service be less expensive. So as a rule of thumb, we're not telling you should convert all your UPS or FedEx, to the Postal Service. That's not an equation. Business to business items, heavier items, primarily ground items going to businesses, private carriers in large volume areas where you're getting good discounts are going to be less expensive. But there are going to be some items that are going to residents, that are going to rural places, that are going, that the box sizes might not be right, that you get fuel, that when you factor all those fees in, no matter how good your discount is, the Postal Service will be less money. And that's why we recommend and we support clients having enterprise tools that can display the rates of UPS and FedEx and the Postal Service all in one screen by day of week and time of day of when you need it to get there so people can make better decisions. And we can do analysis on any of this if anyone's interested, where we could show you your shipments and if there was proper, rate shopping inside of it, what the savings would be over a period of time. Other rate increases. So there are a lot of different international classes, too hard for us to focus on all of them, but you're basically dealing on the 1-ounce and 2-ounce and postcards, you're basically dealing with about a 10% increase. 2-ounce, you can see the rate increase gets higher. Library mail, you're getting about, anywhere between 4 to 8% increases, similar for media mail at 4 to 8%. Special services, huge increases in special services. If you're doing any special services, you have to think about the way you're doing them today. Biggest special service that we have people use that they talk about is certified mail. And certified mail is going up at 21%. 21%, amazing. Like the retail rate is increasing for, if you do a certified mail with return receipt, your price is going from $8.05 to $9.70. If you're sending things electronic, it's going from 672 to 812, just huge increases. We haven't seen these types of increases in special services in a long, maybe potentially ever. If you send electronic return receipt, it saves you $1.58 over the retail versions. So we recommend people thinking about that if they're doing a lot of certifieds. But just huge increases across the board, no matter what the special services are. Especially in business reply mail, you're seeing huge increases that, in permit fees and things like that are going to drive a lot more people to have to think about how they're doing this work. We have a budget calculator that you can use if you want to figure out what's the actual impact to you. You can download it from our website, and basically it's an Excel file, and you just put in your current spend in different mail classes, and it will calculate what's the new rate and the difference, so you can figure out what do you need to budget. Without using this, I would say safely, you want to at least budget 8% to cover your costs on this rate increase to make sure that you're covering it. 9 is safer, but at least 8% to make sure that you're covering yourself. What do you need to do? If you have a mail machine, make sure you download the new rates before July 13th, 2025. Most meters will automatically download those for you. But it's really important when you come in on the 14th in the morning, there's someone to check, what the 1 ounce letter is defaulting to make sure that that is at the 74 cents if you have on your meter, and make sure that that's set up. All of the vendors will have, resource pages that you can use and you can go to and see what they say about their specific requirements. You can go to the Postal Explorer website, which will give you more information about the rates. And all the rates that we showed today, you can go to, we have basically a quick chart that you can download from our website. Just a couple minutes on what we do for clients. We manage 100% of our clients' mail spends, and those are depending on whatever they're doing, whether they have mail equipment in their offices that needs to be looked at, potentially right-sized, whether they need to look to move from meters to enterprise online postage and shipping tools that can compare rates on the fly and automate the way they're doing things. A lot of mail in customers isn't done in their offices, it's outsourced. And the outsourcing side of the mail industry is, $100 billion segment. Very few customers have good visibility to what they're spending, if their rates are good, if the service levels are at par with other vendors, and it's usually managed by multiple different people throughout an organization without any central visibility to it. USPS, most of the postage in the United States isn't run through a postage meter in your office. It's outsourced, or it's done through a direct permit which is an account set up at the Postal Service. So it might be a business reply mail account. It could be a postage due account. It could be a first class or a marketing mail account. There are PO boxes and callers and reserve services. And usually, just like outsourced mail, there's no one person owning all of these. It's scattered throughout your organization with different people taking out different accounts with very little controls. And so our vision and what we do for clients is we manage 100% of a client's mail spends. We have an enterprise dashboard where we pull all of this data together, whether it's your metered mail, online postage, permits, USPS accounts, all your outsourced mailings, any pre-sort services you might be using, and any stamp prints you might be doing directly at the Postal Service. We pull all that together in our dashboards. We then have experts looking at that to see, are there ways to save money? And then we work with our clients to go implement any changes that are required while maintaining this data and visibility. We work with the largest companies in America. Doesn't matter what verticals there are. I would say our two biggest, just because we have more customers mailing these segments, is financial services plus insurance, and then healthcare. Both of those are probably our biggest segments, but we have customers in every category. It just matters that you have disparate mail spends across multiple facilities or outsourcers or pre-sort services or permits that need some oversight or potential visibility. For any account, we will do a no cost or obligation analysis for you. We'll create an inventory to your mail equipment. We'll provide visibility to your permits and outsource providers and pre-sort bills. We can compare UPS, FedEx, USPS, and DHL through rate shopping to see what your savings would be if it was optimized. And we'll develop a mail optimization plan. And that includes right sizing mail equipment, which will cut costs by over 50%. Our enterprise online postage and shipping platforms, do they make sense in your operation? Are there savings with USPS and third party with the work you're doing outside? And a process plan of how we would manage this to do the transition and oversight. For this analysis, it takes us 30 days, and there's very little requirements from the client except sign a letter of authority that allows us to review your mail spends, provide us any mail reports if you have any. Some clients do. Some clients really have nothing so we'll pull together the whole thing. We ask for an accounts payable search from core vendors that you might use and include any known outsourced printers and print and mail services and pre-sort companies. Provide us a small sample of invoice copies from that accounts payable review that we did and meet with us to review the results. And from that, we can show you what's happening in your organization and show savings. So I want to open it up. I want to thank everybody for coming today. I want to open it up for questions and see what's on your mind.
All right, thanks,
Kayla?
Adam. Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I just want to remind you there are two different ways you can ask questions. You can type your question in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you to ask a question. While we wait for some questions to roll in, I just want to point to our social media icons there. You'll definitely hear from us there on a more frequent basis than we have webinars. And also Adam's emails is there in case you have any specific questions for him about anything that he discussed during today's webinar. So it looks like we have our first question. Do you think there will be more rate increases this year?
I think that we can count on a holiday surge pricing for the post office to be able to get that revenue out, which usually is a flat fee added onto the price of every priority and express mail and ground advantage piece. I think we could probably expect that. I don't anticipate there being any other rate increases except in January. So I think January we can pretty much count on there being a pretty decent rate increase. So that's only, give or take 6 months away.
Okay, we have another question. Do you think all of these rate increases will make mail volumes go down quicker?
So on the single piece, we're already seeing it. We haven't seen as the post office has raised rates over the last 4 years at this sort of historic rate. We've seen some slight declines, some changes in classes that people have used. I don't know if we can extrapolate that that's killed mail volumes. In the production side, we haven't seen really any significant proof that that's happened. Besides, so we haven't seen it. I think we can think about clients over time changing mailing habits, potentially doing more things electronic to offset this. But I don't think it's going to be a rash quick piece. I think it's just going to be a slow, ongoing decline of mail volumes with some, occasional irregularities.
Okay, and then what do you think is the best way to save money on mail?
The best way to save money on mail, we find very few organizations, and if you think about your own mail volumes, and I was to ask the question, do you have complete visibility to everything that's being sent out through your organization? And at first glance, you might say, yeah, of course I do. But most organizations don't have anyone that has complete visibility to what's actually happening across all of their mail spends. And the reason is people there usually isn't one person managing that spend collectively. Someone's managing spends that maybe go into a production mail center that might be on site if they have that. But there are other locations that mail. There are other USPS accounts that get taken out by different people. There are different outsourcers that get used. There's pre-sort services. And no one's developed any way to be able to manage all that data into a central dashboard that pulls all that stuff together because the data is very fragmented. So with or without us, what I would say is gain visibility to where the mail spends are through your organization so you can see what's happening, because the biggest obstacle to savings is not having visibility. And then the second biggest obstacle is that in most organizations that those items without any visibility are managed by people who don't have the expertise to know what would be a better course of action in which to handle it. So we go into clients and we do these assessments, and it's, there's huge savings because they don't have anyone inside the organization that really knows how to optimize mail spends, or the people that are managing that specific mail spend, usually outsourced, aren't at an equal footing to the outsourcers in which they're using, who may be taking advantage of them. And so the best way to save money is to get visibility to the mail spends throughout your organization. And then the second one is to put some expertise, whether it's your own or you need help from a third party like us, but to put some expertise to it. So there's someone who's reviewing that, who knows about what, classifications we went over today, what options are available in which to reduce costs. And that's the biggest way to be able to reduce money in mail.
All right. It looks like Susan Braun raised her hand to ask a question, so I'm going to unmute her. Self-muted. You have. It's muted by. Okay. It looks like you're self-muted, Susan. So if you click unmute, it should let you go ahead and ask a question. And then Adam, if you can unmute her as well, it should go through.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Susan.
Oh, hi. So the mail increase for just the from 69, it's going to be 79 now per ounce as of July the 13th.
So let me just go to that real quick. It was 70. So there's two classes. Do you run things through a postage machine, like a postage meter or an online postage tool?
No, we just print ours on sheets.
You print them on sheets. So you use like stamps.com or Pitney Bowes or one of those
platforms.
The
Pitney Bowes, yeah, correct.
Okay. So you get a metered rate, and that metered rate's going from 69 cents to 74 cents.
As of July the 14th.
13th, exactly.
Okay, 69 to 74 cents, you said?
Yep. So if you pre-printed any stamps from sheets, just try to use those before the 13th. And if you do need to use those after the fact, just make sure you're over posting or printing the extra 4 cents. Using two stamps to get rid of them, the ones you have, or just seeing if you can print a 4-cent stamp, a 5-cent stamp to cover the difference.
5 cents difference. Okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do in case we don't print too many sheets at one time. So we just print, a few at the time. So hopefully we won't have anything from now till the 13th. So we'll see what happens. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Okay.
All right, so I think that's all of our questions for today. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us, and also please fill out the survey that will appear at the conclusion of the webinar, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.